Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really excited today to have Jaime Punishill from Metlife. He's the head of corporate marketing, CX, and marketing enablement. Jaime, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Jaime is going to be one of our Silver Apple honorees this year, so we're really excited to celebrate him at our Silver Apples Award in November, in a couple weeks from now. Jaime, I would love for you to just give a quick intro of yourself, and then we can dive in with some questions.
Oh, I don't even know where should I begin? I mean, I'm not a marketer by training. In fact, I was a history and political science major. I thought he was going to be Jack Ryan when he grew up. Ended up stumbling my way into financial services, but again, not in marketing. But very early on in the 90s, led digital transformation. Before anybody knew it was digital transformation, I just thought it was, well, this is what everybody's going to use. So I led the team that built the first online brokerage for Bank of America back in the mid 90s. I was 25 and I knew what the interwebs were. That made me qualified. So, and then I've been all over this industry in really interesting ways. I've been a salesperson. I've been a product person. I've run P&Ls. I've been an analyst. I've been a consultant. I've been in retail banking, commercial banking, lending, retail brokerage, wealth management, asset management, and retirement services, and now group benefits. So it's been a long career around many different pieces of this industry. And then about 10 years ago, I got asked to pivot and take on a more traditional marketing responsibility at TIA, and that's how I sort of got into the marketing side. Became a CMO a couple times at some smaller companies, and then joined Metlife about a year ago. So there's me in a nutshell.
I love it. So what do you, since you kind of fell into it instead of deciding to go down this route, what do you love most about marketing?
Marketing is not complicated. It's difficult, but it's not complicated. It is a really good sense of your market and your customer and data, good strategy, and then disciplined execution. I mean, I hate to make it sound like that simple, but it really is just that simple. And many things are not that. Many things don't, sort of combine or have the potential to combine a deep understanding of the target, strategy, all the way through execution. Some live closer to the strategy side. A lot of things live closer to execution. I think the thing that I like most about marketing is it's inherently customer in or market in, and most other parts of the organization are inside out.
I love
Right?
that. I love that perspective. I'm not sure I've ever heard it put quite that way.
To me, that's the most interesting thing. I mean, it's also worth noting, right? I mean, marketing is the newest discipline in the C-suite, right? CMOs are not like, they weren't part of the original C design. To go all the way back to the industrial age, marketing wasn't really a thing. And even for a while, it was really just about branding more than marketing. It's really been the last 30, 40 years that you have CMO as a thing, which is why everybody's trying to figure out exactly what should the CMO do, and how do we understand marketing, or how do we just trust marketing and not, like most CEOs are not getting into it with their head of cybersecurity, but for some reason they decide to get into with their head of marketing. So it's a new discipline. So that also to me is very interesting, as essentially all organizations are learning something entirely different, and what to do with it, and how it'll change, the structure of the org and the operating model.
It's a new discipline and it changes all the time. So
Yeah, it gets expansive literally every day.
So walk me through maybe I know you gave me a high level overview of your career and how you got here to MetLife, but what are some of the highlights?
This is, I think I did a count recently. This is my 14th company. So I've had 3 kind of really long runs, and then some other places where I either changed roles or I changed organizations. But every move is purposeful. On paper might look like illogical pivots to some people, but for me, again, they're very logical when you look at, sort of how I added them up and how I ended up here. And, it's probably worth noting, it's not like I came out of college, my dad was a plumber. My mother, stayed at home. I had no idea what marketing was, what an executive was, or any of the rest of that. I've kind of, learned the business world as I've gone. So I didn't, think, oh, I always want to be a CEO, or I always want to be a CMO, or one of those things. It really was, hey, this is how I think the market is moving, and the really interesting work is, am I in the right position to be able to help drive that and work on that? No, okay, what do I need? Oh, okay, I haven't managed a P&L. Okay, great. How do I get P&L experience? I haven't managed enough people. How do I get that? I need technical expertise. Okay, how do I get that? And so on and so forth. And that has led to more changes. I always joke I'm a Gen X with a Gen Y resume, because I've had many, many roles at different firms, as opposed to, sort of building that story within one firm. But in each case, it was adding some skill set. And so, like each one of these I could, with excitement, sort of talk about. I mean, having the ability to have that job at 25, where literally I'm talking to the vice chairman of the bank, because nobody between me and him understands the internet. And so, then I was at Forrester, literally at the heyday of the dot-com boom, and then even the bust, and sort of the restructuring. I got to do a startup inside of Citibank. I got to lead the first national rebrand of TIAA and the first national advertising campaign of that organization. I've done a PE, turnaround. I've done, a fintech unicorn. And now I've got the ability to, help, Metlife, which serves 50 million Americans. I was the largest group benefits provider there. So it's all cool. I think I've actually been super fortunate to have really good companies to work for, really good opportunities with really good companies.
That's amazing. So many good companies, but also so many different experiences. Sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, so what it means is I've seen just about everything. There's not a lot new, which is helpful, right? I mean, organizations like, a MetLife or a Bank of America or Citibank, or, these, I mean, they're large and they're complicated, and it's not easy to make those changes for a whole variety of reasons. And some are self-inflicted, but a whole bunch are just very practical, in the regulations, et cetera. So you kind of need that breadth of experience to be able to take on a change or a transformation project at a larger organization.
Right. So you speak about the complexity and how difficult it is for changes. What are some of the other issues and challenges that you see in the marketing industry, or in your role specifically?
Well, I think, look, you highlighted it. What marketing was when I started and what it is now couldn't be more different, in terms of the tactics, the number of channels available, the optionality, consumer behavior, or business behavior. And there's the other thing, right? Like, I've been fortunate to have done B2B and B2C and B2B2C. And there's actually quite a bit you can learn. B2C thinks there's nothing they can learn from B2B, but there's actually a tremendous amount, especially in a world of, cookie and identification, deprecation, and privacy. B2B always operates anonymously. So their entire tactic set is looking at that. But I think the biggest challenge is you have to be in constant learning mode. There is no such thing as stasis, which is great if you're somebody like me who lives there naturally. Like, I would have done that even if it wasn't, sort of the world that I lived in. But it's crazy to think of what wasn't available. When I started B of A, we were still it was just a website, and kind of banner ads and early communities. And then we had the precursors for social, right, and SEO. And now look at, now we're talking about generative, and an entirely different social ecosystem and social commerce. It's like every 2 or 3 years, the industry almost literally refactors itself. If you like that kind of constant learning, challenge, adaptation sort of mix, then it's a great place to be. If you do not, it's a lot less nice to be.
Yeah, we'll certainly fall behind quickly. So
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I say this often on stage. I probably spend 10% of my time, which is not an insignificant amount of time, just, listening to, either reading new stuff or, attending a presentation or listening to vendors or anything to have a constant stream of new inputs, new ideas, just stay at the front of the learning curve. And there's no way, I think, to do it other than to just say, I have to make this a permanent part of my job. That I think is, it's probably the biggest challenge for the vast majority of particularly senior leaders, is how to stay on top of all those things.
So speaking of that and going in a slightly different direction, and you mentioned earlier that marketing is really customer in. When you think of that, what trends do you see coming in your customer base, in your target audiences, or in your industry more broadly?
We're in a data-rich universe. That's the good news. The bad news is the vast majority of firms have their data is messy. Their data governance is messy. Even though we've been talking about this for I don't know how many years, and you get an world like financial services where we literally don't have products, they're just ones and zeros, and yet data is pretty messy. A lot of it comes from systems that were built before the data needs of today. Every behavior is a signal. A download is a signal. A website visit is a signal. The kind of website or the kind of sort of interaction is a signal. What they put in search bar, signals. What do they put in your on-site search? Signals. When they log in, how they engage with emails, et cetera, signals. That's a lot of signals, and that's a lot of noise. I think that's the real challenge, is one, understanding there's no such thing as one signal. You're going to have an alchemy of these things, and I don't care what your category is. Like in B2B, we talk about intent, and everyone wants to debate which intent provider. It's the wrong question. It's which mix of intent providers, because none do it exactly the same way, which means together you're going to get a richer picture. You just have to figure out what you can afford and what the right mix of these things are. That to me is it's both exciting, but it's, single-handedly, I think the biggest challenge. Is understanding that, then figuring out how to use it and operationalize it. So one of the more interesting projects we're working on right now is how do we collect all these signals and then feed them into a generative process that allows me to produce personalized and targeted content at scale. But that requires a totally different way of thinking about content production. Even, do I have writers, or do I have sort of signal curators and editors of data signals that went into basically a machine that says, okay, well, here are the 4 drafts I think we need to create for these different segments or these different approaches to this particular content. You couldn't have even had this conversation 3 years ago. Now it's, super cutting edge and not 100% possible, but it's right there. It's pretty close.
So one of the biggest things in the Marketing Club of New York is really focusing on giving back. And when we choose Silver Apple honorees, we always look at how they've contributed back to the industry. I know you serve as a member of Men Who Support Women in FinTech. Can you speak a little bit about your purpose behind that and what you're focused on there?
In FinTech in particular, we're in tech in particular, we know this, right? We've got, we don't have a good balance of XY chromosomes to XX chromosomes. And it hasn't always been, it's been a bastion of bro culture. And it's been a tougher environment to crack. And I would have done this anyway, but it certainly makes it, brings it much more tangibly at home. I'm married to a woman who's in FinTech, and lived through, the days of Wall Street and FinTech that were a lot less hospitable to women. and I've got 2 daughters. And I mean, this is true for any category. You need allyship. And it shouldn't be up to the women themselves to exclusively to try to fight their way into a space that they never should have had to fight their way into to begin with. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Very nice. I love that. All right. Well, so as we close out, we wanted to get one piece of advice you have we're going to have some students in the audience at the event. We have a lot of student members. What's one piece of advice you'd give someone thinking of joining the marketing world?
To me, it is that persistent learning, and understanding that you're going to need to be adaptable, and you want to just be adding. Everything you do should mindfully be adding skills. Just keep adding skills. Keep learning new things. It's an interesting stat. Something like 80% of the Fortune 500 CMOs are net new to that organization, which is a pretty staggering stat when you think about it. And the reason is that quite often, and I mean, this happens in many disciplines, but I think marketing is perhaps a greater perpetrator of it than others. People stovepipe. Right? I'm a brand person. I'm a demand person. I'm an email person. I'm a web person. I'm a whatever. And that doesn't create a career path for you to have more senior responsibility where you have to understand all of these things. I mean, you just take, my complicated title, which doesn't even begin to actually, talk about all the different functions that live underneath me. Corporate marketing, and our sponsorships and our events and our brand. It is our activation across all of our products and all of our markets. It's channels, and all of our channels. So all the social channels and email and web and mobile, and direct mail, and then you get customer experience, and then you add all the MarTech. That's a wide swath of things, none of which is like the other. To do that, you have to constantly be learning, pivoting, adapting, adding to the skill set. And I just don't know how you can be a marketer these days where you're not trying to understand all of the disciplines, which means being just as versant in the tech, and being able to deal with the technologists and the marketing tech and the operations and the data strategists, and as you are over into strategic brand conversations, translating business strategy into marketing strategy, and so on and so forth. That to me is the successful marketer can span those things. That's both what makes it an exciting discipline to me, but a very difficult one. So if you're young, just learn and grow, pivot, don't stovepipe.
I love that. I love that. So important. And I think it's so reflective too of your career path and how you've intentionally moved around to expand on your skill set. So that's great.
There's a great article, for anybody who wants it, in Harvard Business Review, somewhere in the last 8-9 months, about the undervalued portfolio career. And it's a really great perspective on this exact issue. And by the way, you don't have to change companies necessarily to do that. I happen to do it by more often than not with company change. But you can do that within any given in a given organization or many given organizations. But do that intentionally, like set the goal.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, Jaime, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your time, and we're really excited to celebrate with you in November.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to have been thrown into the mix. I know there's some amazing people who are also nominees or also winners, and so look forward to seeing you.
Yes, we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Appreciate it.